Hey everybody, thanks for joining me here and thanks for checking out my podcast. Don't forget to subscribe to my YouTube channel and click the notification bell for new episodes. You can also find Shine Without Shame on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. I'll just go ahead with your intro that you sent me. Thank you so much. And thank you for being here, Pete, and giving me your time. One note as a heads up, it's garbage day. Monday's gardening day. So I don't always schedule a podcast on Monday mornings, and then Tuesday mornings is garbage day. And he hasn't come. He backs up into our driveway, and I'm in an apartment building. And it's loud. He has the beeping backup. So when that starts, whenever, I'll just say, okay, let's just pause for a couple minutes because it's so loud that I don't think my mic and setup will be able to shield it. So, but otherwise, I think we're ready to go if you're ready to begin. And today, my guest is Pete K. Wong. Pete is a speaker, facilitator, and podcast host. A 2-time suicide survivor, he shares through his personal stories and experiences ways to overcome life's difficult moments. Recognizing the importance of taking care of our mental and physical health and developing a more robust and healthier mindset, Pete does this by utilizing the teachings and principles found in boxing, martial arts, yoga, and meditation. He's spoken to schools, organizations, corporations, and senior-assisted homes, spreading his core message of radical vulnerability. You can listen on the topics about mental health and wellness with Pete and his guests on the Pete Wong Podcast. Pete, thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you, Tiffany. I'm really excited to have a conversation with you and just support the work that you're doing and learn more about you too.
Oh, thank you. This podcast was inspired because a couple of years ago, really at the start of the pandemic, when so much was happening in the world and especially in the US, there were so many conversations, such strong emotions about social justice and health and well-being. And I think people were feeling in some ways unified and in other ways disunified.
Right.
I recognized I was working from home like many, and I recognized that I wasn't having the conversations that I was used to having on a day-to-day basis when I was in the office. And I was starting to take notes in a little notebook on thoughts that I had about all various topics. It's like, when I find someone who wants to talk about this topic, I'll have it ready to go. And then I was thinking, well, why not just create a little bit more of a formal channel and environment where I can plan conversations with guests. And I thought that the idea of talking about shame and not really just focusing on shame and what it is, although that's what we do here, but talking about the idea of shining in the world and not feeling badly for shining was something that inspired me. And I wanted to cultivate opportunities to speak to people about how they have learned to work through and overcome and maybe still are in the midst of their challenges and difficulties and tests, but what they've done to transcend or heal or rise above and work through those difficulties and try to find the light and then be in a place where they want to shine and feel good about shining. I wanted to explore this. So I'm very happy to have you here talking about your journey. And you speak to so many people. I'm so curious what inspires you or what calls you to share your story and your insights and your wisdom with so many.
Yeah. Oh, thanks. First of all, I want to say I like the 2 S's, shine and shame. At some point, one of my buddies back in LA, his name's Jacob. Jacob, hello. He would we would talk a lot about just like, uplifting each other. He was making some changes in his life, moving from Canada to LA. And I had been living in LA for a while, and just been on this my own transformation for quite a while by then. And I would talk about, like, I just like this word shine, like I kept on saying, like, like shine or shine on or something like that. And I forgot what his word was. Shoot. Oh, it was glow. It was glow. So so we were joking around, like he was gonna be glow and I was gonna be shine, but that never went anywhere. Anyways, so but I just like that, because I think these two S's are so important, for us to be very open, transparent, vulnerable, and just face it. So to answer your question though, what inspires me? Um, well, I think it all started with um when I went into my depression. After my best friend committed suicide. I was in my, like, 20s, like mid to early 20s. And when you're mid early 20s, like any young adult out there, you already feel lost, confused, searching. But for me, there was a combination of things that hit me at the same time. Like I think, like, my quote unquote first love broke up with me, and then I received the news of my best friend taking his life. And so from that point on, I went in. Luckily I was able to um have enough in me to go. I don't know anything about therapy. I thought therapy was a bad thing. I now recommend everyone to experience or have an opportunity to see a therapist, if they can. But what came out of that was a conversation. My therapist, I don't even remember her name anymore. It was such a long time ago. But what came out of that was this conversation. Basically, she helped me identify that something that I knew, but I kind of had put it away. And that was that my grandma had committed suicide when I was a little boy. And I I see it. I mean, I remember it this way, but when you're young, you're not sure about the truths. But I believe that I found her. So just to add that to, so I think there was a lot of trauma without knowing the trauma, like, and I think that's normal for young people. There's trauma imposed on them, on you, and you're not aware of it. Flash forward years later, why do I have this pain? Why do I have these thoughts? And why am I, like, hurting? And so that's where it began. And then I started to channel the part of me that was always there. Like my best friend, his name was Dez, and Dez and I shared a relationship, a friendship. I consider him my soulmate. Where it was nothing about the physical, it was about the spiritual. And it was weird because, I think we were like in ninth grade, like ninth grade to my early 20s. It's like we're having conversations about spirituality. And it's like, what is this exactly? I don't know, but something resonated with me. So when he died, part of me, like that like my name is Peter, and like when you translate it in Greek, it means like rock. But my best friend was my rock because he helped me see that I could live in a world where it wasn't about the things that other people were doing. It was more about the things that I couldn't see. I couldn't, the esoteric and, these things. But at that age, it's like, who talks like that? But that's where it began, his inspiration, his love, his authenticity with me, his, our relationship, our friendship. And after that, it just, like, I was sharing more of me once I got out of my depression, and I realized that people needed it. And I would go into schools, like, just by happenstance, because I don't know. I don't even know how it happened. I had to get it out, I guess you could say. And one of the times the teacher had the kids write, I think it was my
Oh,
friend. He
Pete,
was,
I'm sorry. Just pause. He's
yeah.
backing up.
Oh, okay.
You may not even hear it, but I just want to make sure. So
Yeah,
just pause. You were talking about going into a school
sure.
and okay, remember where you were.
No, that's
I know
great.
it's such a beautiful story. You're just so
Yeah.
well articulated and I don't want you to lose the flow, but sorry, just
No,
for a
no,
moment,
it's all
just for
good.
a moment. He's quick. But he has to get out. It's just him. This is this is Tuesday. This is trash day. Okay, so
Oh.
he has to get the little fork thingies, the little slits into the trash. You don't care about this, but it's funny to me. I know the whole process, and he has to dump the trash. But on Thursdays, when he comes back for recycling,
Yeah.
that's when he has to get out and manually uh pull each recycling bin, because those are like separate. We have like 4 bins. Pull those up to the truck and then like kind of help the truck grab it. And so it's a much more manual process on Thursday. Tuesday, I
Gotcha.
don't think he has to get out of the truck. I think he just has to back it up into the trash bin. Anyways, these details and like this is his, this is his world. This is his life.
Yeah.
It's important to him. To someone else, it's like, whatever, you're just picking up my trash. But I'm grateful that he
Yeah.
shows up every week.
Yeah. No, I do care, I do care about what's going on. I care because I feel like, it's a that's how we learn. We watch I think I might have gotten that from acting training. They used to say, uh it was like homework, like, just watch people, observe people, right?
Yes.
So,
Yes.
and as I get older and kind of learning more about like people's mental health, it's like people do things, and yeah, like sometimes it's like, first initial reaction is why, or like you said, like, I don't care, right? But the more I've been learning how to empathize with people, the more it's like, okay, I'm just gonna watch them. Okay, like, and then I get a little curious, like, what brought them to do this? Do they enjoy it? And then that ties in with the work that I do now. It's like, if you're not enjoying it, why? Right. And then so it ties back in with your question about the inspiration. So,
well, when you're ready, if you want to get
sure.
back to your story, we can
Sure.
continue.
Okay. So I believe I was talking about my buddy who was teaching a class, and I came in to speak, and afterwards he did this really cool thing where he had the kids write like reflections, and I had never had that before. And he just gave them to me one day, and afterwards, and I read them, and it's kind of like one of those things where it's like, if you have like, if you're not sure, like maybe you have imposter, quote unquote, imposter syndrome, like you're not sure if what you're doing is, like what you should be doing, or maybe you're not content or happy. All of a sudden, just reading those, it was like, wow, like, I mean, that alone just excites me, just to hear kids say that they were inspired, or they feel like they could go another day, or, another kid reflecting on suicide in their family. Or a kid talking about how they were thinking about suicide, but then they decided after this, they're not going to, right? Stuff like this is like, that brought value to my pain. And so the older I got, the more pain I dealt with. But I always wanted to find a way to alleviate people's suffering. But part of and I'll probably get into it, part of my own transformation was realizing that I had to alleviate my own first, right? Like as much as I wanted to inspire people, as much as I wanted to help people, like, that whole, like, they always use that analogy of the plane coming down, and, you got to, I
Put your
didn't
mask on
know.
first.
Yeah. I didn't know that was a thing. I didn't know how to, and I didn't know that I needed to. And so even when I was thinking about like the questions that you know that you sent, you know, just the prompts and to think about, I was like, man, when I really think about it, shame shame is like an ongoing thing, but I feel like it comes in like different sizes and shapes. So I was like, okay, if Tiffany wants to talk about one particular thing, I can, but I'll have to come back for another. You know, because I was like, there is, when I really sit down and think about it, there's a lot of different aspects of my life that I do find shame, but I've also found now a practice and a process to um like be okay with it, right? Which before I didn't have that. Before it was like I didn't know what shame was. I didn't know that I felt it until I hurt so much. I hurt so much. I felt alone. I felt, in the book that I'm working on, sharing about my healing, I use the word like feeling like a loser, right? And stuff like this that, like now the work that I do, it's all about sending out in the world encouraging words, kind and gentle words, but also giving people permission to say kind words to themselves, like first and foremost. And I was just thinking, so I can stop here. I mean, so, but when I was thinking about that, I was like, wow, um, but there's enough to where I've dissected it, where I've unpacked it for myself, where it's like, oh, I could definitely talk about this. I can definitely talk about, like for example, like just my culture, and having to overcome certain programming that I got, from that. Um, being a man, being an so it kind of like, what does it mean to be a man? And discovering healthy masculinity. And then a combination of that, being Asian, a man, identify as a man in the Midwest, and not knowing like how I could express my feelings, express my pain, express my my even my anger. Like how do I express my anger in healthy ways, right? So there are all these little things, but when I really like thought about it, the very first thing was that I think that I need to address is the importance of loving myself. And I saw your post this morning, and the first thing that you talked about was self-love, right? So I don't know, was that this morning or maybe a couple of days ago? Was that
Oh,
this morning?
yeah, you're right. I posted it yesterday, but that makes sense that
Okay.
it popped up today. Yes,
So
I was talking about
yeah,
self-worth, and really at the heart of having
yeah,
self-worth, you've got to have self-love.
yeah, yeah. So if you want to talk about that, like my story about that, we can. But I was thinking like that's what it is. It's and I think it's so important, and I work with youth and watching them. I just want to say to them, it's hard though. It's like because they may not be ready for it, but it's like, do you love yourself? Like, how are you loving yourself today? And stuff like that. But it's like, why don't we teach that in schools? You know, we teach kids like how they're making mistakes in XYZ, or how like they didn't accomplish this XYZ, they didn't turn this in. But why aren't we having conversations about, are you doing well loving yourself?
Right. And I simply describe self-love as loving yourself, meaning accepting yourself, imperfections and all,
Mm-hmm.
and knowing that you have something to contribute in the world, to the world. And to your point, right, there is a process of gaining knowledge and learning and growing in your understanding of different subjects, different aspects of life. But if you don't have a sense that you belong, if you belong here, or you don't believe that you're really worthy of being here or being loved while you're here, what is it that we're all doing then? Are we just it just it can, in my mind, sort of be like cogs in a big machine, and what is the purpose of the machine? To move the world forward, but we're all a part of this. And so yeah, it's the idea of self-love. I mean, while it maybe is like a new age or trendy term, it's real. It's a real concept that I think is inherent to what we are as human beings, and also this kind of other layer, this abstract layer of the spirit, something that you can't see or touch, but is a part of our consciousness, and about the bigger purpose of why we're here. So it seems that self-love, which has nothing to do with the ego, truly,
Mm-hmm.
is critical. If we don't feel good about being here, if we don't think we're worthy, well, some people go through their whole lives feeling that way, and they miss out on the opportunity to share who they are with the world, share their unique combination of gifts and abilities. But also what I've learned and witnessed is that when we don't love ourselves, we that also turns into not attracting or not seeking relationships where we
Mm-hmm.
can receive the love, like that reciprocal mutual sharing of and giving of love. So it can affect us in so many ways. It affects how we just feel when we're sitting at home, but also the people who we have in our lives. Now, some people in our lives, because they're family, and we don't really have a choice that they're our family members, and maybe sometimes there's a lot of struggle and difficulties with some of those, not all, but some of those relationships. But it also affects who we bring into our lives in addition to family. And so it's a profound concept. And I like the idea of it doesn't have to be anything that sounds so impossible or strange. Like, this is just about accepting who you are and appreciating who you are. So I did find that it was calling me to speak about that. And so I posted.
Yeah. My mentor, he used to talk about like, today who you are is enough. And like, anything past that is like the cherry on the ice cream, or and when he said that, like, I mean, this is why, he is my mentor. This is why he's my best friend. His name's Orpheus Black, Guru Orpheus Black. Um, it was just like, it gave me permission to just be, and just like enough, and I think if everybody knew, like, who you are today is enough. Now, now who you are today is enough, but it doesn't mean that you don't put some work in yourself, right? Because and this is, as you were sharing, I was thinking, the thing that ties in, I think, with shame and self-worth, self-love, is it's easy to get influenced by everything outside of us. Like, as soon as you enter the world, you're already the world is already like, and that's why, what is it, generational trauma, right? Your My sister's friend, and I'm sure your friend, probably Resma, right? Resma Makina, his books, My Grandmother's Hands. He has another book that just came out, but not too long ago. But like, he talks about everything about how the body, there's already trauma instilled in us before birth. And it's like, hey, consent, like, I didn't ask for that, right? So these are the type of conversations, when we're talking about mental health, that I think are so important. And had I not been around my mentor where he took me to these spaces where people were having these vulnerable conversations, or me just him and me breaking bread, sitting in the car, having these conversations, and then little by little having other conversations with other friends and other, especially other men, having these conversations about those things, and just like, if not looking for solutions or having answers, just bringing out the questions. It's like, oh, you feel that way? I didn't know. Oh, oh, okay. I guess it's okay to feel that way. Right. Or learning something, like, oh, I didn't know that I had trauma since I was, well, let me dissect that a little bit. Let me unpack that a little bit. Let me talk to my family members a little bit. Well, it's a little scary. Right. So, but it's these kind of things that I think are so important. And if we don't know these things, like, we're just going to continue to be in our suffering, in our pain, in our trauma, and it just repeats, until someone says, you know what, enough's enough. So when I was going through my transformation, it was boxing, mixed martial arts, yoga, and different forms of meditation. But all it is I had to learn how to quiet the noise. I needed, like, in martial arts and in boxing, like, they call them pressure testers, but it's like, someone is pounding the crap out of you, and you have to recognize, like, not to take it personally. Right? Like, I mean, but you're not, but everyone's taking it personally. You're trying to hurt me. You're trying to beat me up. No, like, I'm just putting pressure on you. Right? Now, if someone is trying to hurt you, right? Like, like let's say you get in a situation, an encounter, and someone is trying to hurt you, right? Your first initial emotion is, oh, I am going to take it personal. They're trying to hurt me. But the advanced fighter goes, maybe I don't need to take it personal. That doesn't mean that I'm not going to let them, like, hurt me, but I'm getting rid of, like my mentor used to say, they don't exist. Okay. I'm not going to let them hurt me, but I'm also not going to let their emotions, their projected anger, affect me, because lots of times when you do that, you're the one that gets hurt. And that's what I love about martial arts and boxing. It's taught me so much about how to be calm in the chaos. I think that's, like, my favorite thing. When people ask me, like, who are you? I'm calm in the chaos. Like, I don't know how that happened. It's just, it found me. And so but then I also have to do, like I have to do seated meditation, seated quote unquote meditation, because I also need, like, opportunities to relax, to be calm without the chaos, or a different form of chaos. But all of it is just to, like, just calm down and not let the world get to me, not let these influences, my previous programming, get to me. So, but I think that ties hand in hand with like, shame is, how we're raised, certain things people said to you, how certain things influence you, social media, all these things are distractions to finding you. And if you is enough, all that other noise has to really turn down. And I think in the world, people are just turning it up. That's the issue.
It's easier to not have to face yourself or deal with yourself. So when you turn the noise up, you can focus on other people and their issues and their challenges, or just their lives. I'm curious about the idea of distractions and the idea of your process of letting go of some of your programming, as you articulated. And I'm wondering if there those outdated beliefs about yourself that you may have had to address, you know, that programming that like software needed an update, it just wasn't serving you anymore. I'm curious if that also included addressing or relating to your family in whatever sense, or like you said in earlier, the cultural values or the cultural identity that you had, that maybe part of that, not all of it, but part of it maybe wasn't serving you in the best way, even if the whole reason for those cultural values was with the best of intentions, maybe it just wasn't serving Pete K. Wong. And I'm curious if there was a like an awakening to that reality, or a reckoning with that, and what that looked like.
Yeah, no, thanks. That's a great question. I I can answer that question, but I think I also want to put out there like that because I know myself that things rise to the surface, right? Like they call them, yeah, trauma. Mr. Jason Wilson says, you teleport your trauma, right? When for example, when I'm in my relationship with my girlfriend, and in the early part of our relationship, we would have these moments, or what some people call arguments, and what she says or what I say, you know, we end up triggering each other, right? And I apologize for using that word trigger without giving a caveat. But it's like learning how to sit in that space of being uncomfortable because you don't have the answer, because your previous programming is going like I know in my past, because the men that I saw either would shut down their feelings, walk away when it got hard, or 3, explode. It wasn't until I was around healthier men, my mentor, my best friend. So my mentor, Orpheus Black, is my best friend, but also my best friend, Henry Rodriguez, and Thomas Rodriguez, not related. And these other men that I would have healthy conversations about being uncomfortable, whether you know, similar with their partners and that kind of stuff. So I finally had a practice and a process and some tools to go, okay, I'm feeling these things. I'm not gonna because when you unpack it, it's where is this anger really coming from? And as Jason Wilson says, it's because you feel sad, because you don't know how to handle the situation. So, but most men don't know how to cry, don't know it's okay to cry. So in that moment, and then we're taught not to cry, you know, and even some women who may not have practiced themselves may look at that man and not hold space for him to cry. So I knew that I loved my girlfriend. I knew that I loved her as a human being. I knew little what she shared with me. So I knew enough not to, right? Okay. But I'm still really uncomfortable. I used to walk away. Walking away, I want to say walking away is okay, but make sure you let them know where you're going, right? Mm-hmm. Don't just, right? But I needed to communicate how I was feeling. I had to communicate, baby, I don't know. This is frustrating. And even saying things like, just saying what's on your heart, what's on your mind. Like, you know what? I think I'm feeling these feelings because in my past, I would see, like I love my dad. I love the men in my family, but maybe certain ways that they handled situations was not healthy to me. So I think I've learned different ways, I've gained different tools, but I wouldn't know that I needed it until it rose to the surface. And even like in the past when I did like boxing with Orpheus, um like little things like I get punched in the face and then I want to hit back. And then he'd say, why are you such a pugilist? Why are you such a headhunter? And I was like, isn't that what you're supposed to do? Right? But then he can't just say, no, that's not what you're supposed to do. And then, aha, I get it. Right? There's a process, there's a practice, there's a mind and body like experience that needs to happen. I need to be in those spaces where it's super uncomfortable and I have to go, why do I feel uncomfortable? And then unpack it, like maybe with somebody, and that's where mentors come in handy. A loving partner, like someone that you can actually like be vulnerable, be uncomfortable with, because you're not going to grow without that. And so to me, like it's there's so many like different experiences that I've had where it's like, oh, like, huh. But I didn't know how to just sit with that uncomfortableness, But once you sit in that uncomfortable and you're okay with it, then the next thing is a blessing. So I don't know if I answered your question.
You did so
So
beautifully. You articulated
thanks. Yeah.
your answer, and it's a reminder always that our ancestors, our family, they got us to where we are. Without them, we wouldn't have been able to evolve in a sense, because they do the best and have done the best that they could do, given their tools and their insights and their knowledge. And passing the baton on to the next generation, and that continues and continues,
Yeah.
is a very sacred process, even with the trauma and the trials and the pain and being from histories that were under oppression and tyranny, whatever the circumstances. We all come from I think lineages and histories where oppression and tyranny was probably predominantly what drove people in their survival mode. But it's all a beautiful part of the evolutionary process, and we currently, those of us alive, are hopefully able to gain more tools, more knowledge, more insight, and to learn how to deal with the pain and trauma that we experience, and also to gain the wisdom, so we can talk about it, which is what one of the ways you're offering your contributions to the world, is to find eloquent ways to talk about eloquent and inspirational ways to talk about your journey, your struggles. We're sharing learning, and it's a really powerful process, and everyone's a part of it. Hopefully everyone has the opportunity to grow and heal. I know some people may spend their lifetimes never addressing the pain. It's just too much. But even, I don't know even if that has to be looked at as a failure, right?
No.
But because especially if they do have offspring, if they have children, then there's an opportunity for growth, for progress. Like, we don't know anyone's destiny. We should never presume to know anyone's destiny.
Right.
And so I so appreciate you being open and sharing about your process of becoming vulnerable and being willing. It sounds like there has, in your experience, you were willing to find the tools and resources, the mentors who could help you along. I think that's a huge piece, the willingness,
Mm.
which also requires us to be honest and open with ourselves. It's scary, like you've said
Mm.
already. I mean, it can be scary. I've gone through the process myself of having to, I've always been quite vulnerable, but of having to find the tools and the ways to heal pain, to heal the pain I experienced. I always had a willingness. I know that, as
Mm.
I know myself well since I was a child. I didn't want to live in pain. I didn't, and I think I had such a strong sense as a young person of I didn't know that it was evolution that was I was
Mm.
hungry for, but I was always called to evolution. And it was a blessing that at a young age I had some knowledge of that, even if I couldn't articulate what it was that I wanted and I was
Mm.
searching after. Some people don't have that strong drive, but every person on the planet certainly is worthy of the journey to heal and to grow. And I also think the idea of talking about shame is interesting, although of course the podcast is called
Mm.
Shine Without Shame. So there's a positive at the end. There's the light at the end of that. But I did have somebody who was potentially going to be a guest who said, I actually don't like the title of your podcast. I don't like that the
Mm.
premise of it assumes that you're starting with
Mm.
shame. I heard what they were saying, but at the same time, that's why I started the podcast, because everywhere I looked in the world, every conversation I had, I witnessed so much shame, not
Yeah.
from a place of judgment. It was just observing.
Yeah.
So many of us deal with shame. Now, sometimes the shame is small scale,
Mm-hmm.
and sometimes it's so large because it comes from our past, it comes from our history, our lineage. So I think it's okay to acknowledge shame, but I certainly am not saying, okay, everybody on the planet sort of should assume that they're living in shame. That's certainly not the intention of the podcast, but it's just more to acknowledge that it exists and a lot of us deal with it.
Yeah.
So